In marketing, it's very important to understand the concept of the market. But in marketing, more than the market, we talk about the environment. So I will be talking about the environment. After this, I will be talking about strategies. And after strategies, I will be talking about research. In fact, it is important to understand that those three subjects in some way have to be explained in three separate times, but however, they overlap. So the most realistic way would be to explain them at the same time, and explaining strategies and the environment and research at the same time will make it much more complicated. So I made the effort to separate them, and I choose to start talking about the environment first. Why do I talk about the environment first? Because when you start a new venture, you worry about some idea that you want to launch in the market. So first is, what do you like to do? What is your idea? And who is the customer? Is there anyone that cares about what you want to do? So you have to think about some kind of plan that you have to do. A strategic plan is necessary because it's some way to organize and codify and planify everything that you're going to do in order to be the most organized as possible, in order to accomplish things and be able to measure it. But you also want to have a plan, that way people know the objectives, and then everyone can see how close you're successfully accomplish the objectives and how far you were from accomplishing them. You can see what you've done, and you can sort of connect what you've done with the accomplishment, and maybe what you haven't done with the fact that you didn't accomplish as much. So it's important to have a plan. It's important to be thinking in terms of strategic planning, also because you're sharing it with the other people, and that way they can see what you're doing. So when you're looking at your environment, you think about this concept, which is a management, marketing, economics, business concept overall. It's called the PEST analysis, also called the PESTLE analysis. The idea is that you're going to break your environment into categories, like the political category, the economical, social, and technological categories. And each one of these categories is going to be broken down into subcategories, and you're going to try to gather as much information on this. The idea is to be able to get an overview of the market and all the things that are going on and the things that you can take advantage of. So this is also called under what's known as the SWOT analysis, the situation analysis. So the SWOT analysis is based on the acronym SWOT, which is the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So the strengths is things that the company is good at doing, and weaknesses is what they're not as good. The opportunity are the factors in the environment that you can take advantage of, and the threats are these conditions that are hurting your business and making things more difficult. This is not rocket science, but what's difficult is to understand the difference between SW and O and T. SW is a pair that belongs together because it's internal, so it's the analysis of the company in itself, versus O and T is external, so it has nothing to do with the company. So if you say the company has a large bank account, that's internal. But if you say that you have competitors that have a large bank account, that's external. So competitors have a large bank account, that becomes a threat. You have a large bank account, that's a weak strength. So dividing what belongs to you and what belongs to the outside market is very important. The most difficult thing to look at when you're searching for the SWOT analysis is definitely the opportunities. The opportunities are 10 times, 20 times, 100 times more difficult than finding the SW and the T. The easiest one, oftentimes, is to do the S and W because it's about your company and they tend to be pretty obvious. But the less obvious one are the one that you also want to find, and usually they are probably the most important that you want to find because they are not so obvious. The threats, the problem with the threats is there are many, and we're going to start looking at all the characteristics. So again, the SWOT is the result of doing a PESTLE analysis. If you do a PESTLE, is eventually to be able to create a nice SWOT. So some people don't do the PESTLE, they go straight to do the SWOTs, but by doing the SWOTs, they had to do the PESTLE. So what's the environment? The environment is broken down into three spheres. There's the company, the sphere in the center, and then there is the directly affecting factors, which is inside the pink circle, and then there's the indirectly affecting factors, which are inside the yellow circle. The pink are called the micro environment, and the yellow are called the macro environment. So let's look at them. But first, there's something I want to share with you because it's very important to realize that what is the factor that exerts the broadest and deepest influence on consumers. Consumers are affected by everything. But what is the one that affects them the most? The culture, the social class, the personality, the lifestyle, or the education. The one that has the broadest influence is actually the culture. So the culture has a huge influence because people are living in an environment where they learn the codes and the values of the environment. And then eventually, most of the time, they make responses and decisions that you can predict based on their culture. So lots of different things have an impact on people's behavior, but the one that has the biggest influence is the culture. And I say this because the culture is one of the elements in the macro environment that is very, very important. So all of these factors have an influence, but you can always say that there's some factors that have a bigger influence than some others. And the one that have the biggest influence are the one that directly, the micro environment that is directly affecting the company, and the macro environment is also indirectly affecting it. And it's hard to deny that it has less influence, because when you're thinking, for example, the economic elements, meaning do people make money or no money, do they have a job or no job, obviously that has a big influence on the business being able to sell something or offer something to the market. So what are the different type of consumers? You have the customers, sorry, you have the consumer, the individual consumers, you have the organization, business consumers, you have the people that buy and sell, you have also the government, and then you have the consumer outside of the domestic market. What are the different type of publics? So the publics are in the macro environment, and they have some influences. So the banks have an influence, the media has an influence, the government, the group of citizens that have an organization to protect their rights, the local residents, the general public, and also the employees of your company have a stake and have a significant influence. The macro environment is made of the changes first with demographics. Do people live more in one area than another? Are there more women than men? Are they older, younger people? So that has an influence. The fact that they have a job, the fact that they have savings, that's the economic factor, is one of the most influent, obviously. The natural resources is, do we have access to resources that we can use in order to make something? The technological factors are all the changes in terms of innovation and changes in terms of the way people process, consume, and conduct themselves is very influential. And then you have the political, which is all the regulations and the government changes that they're doing in terms of laws and so forth. And then you have the culture, are the different trends that people may have and decide when they are making decisions based on what they think is the fashion of the moment, the style of the moment. So the demographic elements, again, it's the age, if people are married, not married, if they live in a certain area, if they go to school, if they're educated, and also the different variety of ethnicities that may have an impact on how people make decisions. So the environment is very important. Understanding and learning this simple target map is very important. This is something that most people learn and then they forget. When in fact, it's very important, because this is where you go look for opportunities. Your opportunities, your threats come from all of these factors. And this is how you look at an idea and see if an idea is worth pursuing based on the situation analysis and based on your understanding of the SWOT, and most focused on the element of opportunity.